They found his body. But where are his clothes? That's not just a weird question, it's a clue so huge, so overlooked, that it could flip this entire investigation on its head. Michael Gaine, a quiet Irish farmer, vanished from his land without a trace. 2 months later, parts of his body were discovered hidden in one of the most grotesque places imaginable, a slurry tank used to spread animal waste across fields. His remains were confirmed by DNA, but the forensic team quickly realized something disturbing. There were no clothes with the body, no shirt, no pants, no boots, not even a scrap of fabric. That tiny detail, it's the kind of thing professional killers think about. It's what investigators now believe might be the key to understanding how Michael was murdered and why. Because in every major case, when clothes go missing, it's not random, it's intentional. It means someone had a plan. And tonight, we're going to ask the question that nobody is daring to ask. Who took Michael Gaine's clothes, and what are they hiding? On the morning of March 20th, 2025, Michael Gaine was seen alive for what would be the last time. According to confirmed CCTV footage and Gardaí reports, he walked into a Centra store in Kenmare where he bought mobile phone credit. He didn't drive far, just a few kilometers from his farm in Carrick East. But what matters is what he wore. Locals familiar with Michael said he always dressed the same way: heavy work pants, thick boots, and a wool-lined farm jacket, especially in March, when the weather in County Kerry is still wet and cold. He wasn't someone who went into town dressed casually. If he was out and about, he was likely wearing farming gear, probably dirty from work gloves in his pocket, maybe a wool cap if it was cold. And here's the thing: that entire outfit is nowhere to be found. When the Gardaí discovered human remains in the slurry tank, they found no clothing, nothing clinging to bone, nothing stuck in the machinery, not even remnants of socks or shoelaces. Which raises two urgent questions. Was Michael killed in those clothes? Or did someone go through the effort of taking them off, destroying them, or hiding them piece by piece after the fact? Either way, that outfit might hold the single most valuable forensic evidence in the entire case, and right now it's still missing. So let's talk about the million-euro question. Why would someone make the body disappear in slurry, but take the clothes separately? It's not just strange, it's strategic. And when you look at real-world criminal cases, there are three possible reasons why a killer might go out of their way to remove and destroy a victim's clothes. Burned to erase the blood and DNA. Burning clothes is one of the most common methods used by killers who want to erase forensic evidence. Why? Because clothes tell stories: blood spatter, tissue, weapon residue, even bone dust if a chainsaw was involved. And in Michael's case, Gardaí are analyzing a chainsaw found on the farm. That alone raises the possibility that his clothing could have held traces of violence, not just stains, but patterns that show how he died or what direction a weapon struck from. If someone burned them in a barrel, a fire pit, or even a stove, it could be why no trace has turned up. Buried hidden far from the crime scene. Another possibility: the clothes were buried separately, not on the farm, but off-site, maybe in the woods, under manure, or somewhere the killer believed police wouldn't search. This is important, because the Gardaí initially treated the case as a missing person, not a homicide. That means whoever committed this may have had time to get rid of evidence before forensics locked the farm down. If the killer buried them at night or while locals were asleep, those clothes could be decomposing silently under inches of soil just out of reach of investigators. Kept or dumped, but deliberately removed. And then there's the most chilling possibility. Someone took the clothes and never planned to leave them behind. This isn't just about cleaning up. This is about control. If Michael's killer had an emotional motive, jealousy, rage, revenge, then taking the clothes might have been personal, a power move, a message, or even a sick way of delaying identification. Or maybe, just maybe, they were thrown in a separate location to divide the investigation, to buy time, to confuse scent dogs, or to stop detectives from reconstructing how Michael died. Because here's the truth. Bodies don't lie, but neither do clothes, and someone made damn sure those clothes disappeared. In murder investigations, clothing is evidence. It's not just something a person wears, it's a forensic canvas. And in Michael Gaine's case, the fact that no clothing was found with the remains means investigators lost one of the most crucial tools they could have had. Let's break it down. Here's what Michael's missing clothes could have revealed. Blood pattern analysis. The pattern and shape of blood stains can reveal the type of weapon used, the number of blows, the direction and angle of attack. If Michael was attacked with a chainsaw or blunt object, as some suspect, his jacket, shirt, or pants would have shown spatter patterns, arterial spray, or transfer stains. That tells investigators if it was rage, an ambush, or a struggle. Trace evidence. Clothing traps microscopic clues like hair or skin from the attacker, fibers from gloves or tools, oil and fuel if machinery like a chainsaw was used, even metal shavings if cutting tools were involved. And remember, Gardaí confirmed a chainsaw was found at the scene. If that was the murder weapon, there's a high chance his clothes would have held tool residue or even fragments from bone or tissue. DNA and touch evidence. Even the inside of clothing matters. Think about sweat DNA inside the shirt, fingerprints or touch DNA if the killer moved or redressed the body, tear patterns, stretch marks, even pulled fabric from self-defense. Investigators routinely swab collars, cuffs, and pockets for foreign DNA, but in this case, there's nothing to test. Post-mortem timeline clues. Clothes help establish whether the body was moved post-mortem, if there was posthumous manipulation, and the time of death based on insect activity or decomposition inside fabric. All of that is gone without clothing, and that's not just unfortunate, it's suspicious. Because someone didn't just kill Michael. They strategically removed the only layer of physical evidence that could have exposed how it happened. The Gardaí have spent weeks combing through Michael Gaine's farm with drones, cadaver dogs, slurry tank divers, and specialist forensic teams, and yet, despite all that, not a single piece of his clothing has been recovered. So the question becomes, can the clothes still be found, or are they gone forever? Let's talk about the tools available and why they matter now more than ever. Scent dogs still the best option. Trained scent tracking dogs can pick up human decomposition odors, clothing fabric contaminated with blood or bodily fluids, soil that's been recently disturbed or has foreign items buried beneath it. Even if it's been weeks, if the clothes were buried or dumped nearby, these dogs might still be able to detect the unique combination of human scent plus decomposition, especially in a rural, organic environment like Gaine's farmland. But, and this is big, if the clothes were burned or taken off-site, that trail goes cold. Drones and thermal imaging. Drones equipped with thermal cameras have been used to detect buried heat pockets, spot recently disturbed soil patterns or dig sites, identify foreign materials in open fields or forests. If the clothes were buried shallow in a rush, drones could spot inconsistencies from above, especially in slurry-covered fields where normal human eyesight would miss it. It's unclear whether this tech was used in clothing-specific searches or just for the body. Ground-penetrating radar (GPR), GPR can detect anomalies beneath the earth, objects like burned barrels, metal buckles, fabric bundles, bones. If Gardaí suspect the clothes were buried in a specific part of the farm or nearby woodland, GPR sweeps could locate hidden pockets underground, even if the fabric itself is starting to break down. Field contamination, a silent problem. One brutal twist. The slurry spreader that exposed Michael's remains had already spread across parts of the farm, which means if clothing fragments were mixed in, they may now be scattered, torn, or buried across multiple fields. Rain, mud, and animal activity could have damaged them beyond visual recognition. Unless they were removed before the body went into the tank, they could literally be anywhere, and that makes the search a nightmare. So here's the bottom line. Yes, the clothes could still be out there, but only if someone is looking in the right place. And the longer they stay missing, the more it looks like this wasn't an accident. It was a cleanup, a calculated one. Here is the cold truth. You don't forget to leave clothes behind. You choose to remove them. And in Michael Gaine's case, that's exactly what someone did. When investigators discovered his remains inside the slurry tank, they found human tissue, bone fragments, organic matter, but not even a torn shirt sleeve or a single bootlace. Not one fiber of clothing survived that process. And that's not an accident. This wasn't rage, this was strategy. If Michael had been killed in a sudden outburst, a fight gone too far, a personal argument, the killer would have been panicked, sloppy, messy. They wouldn't have had time to think about removing the clothes, let alone hiding them forever. But here, someone had time, someone took control. Maybe they stripped the body before disposing it. Maybe they redressed it in disposable clothes and burned the originals. Or maybe they knew exactly what those clothes contained and they weren't about to leave that kind of evidence behind. Because clothing isn't just about what you see, it's about what it can prove in court. What the missing clothes tell us about the killer. This wasn't someone who panicked. This was someone who knew that clothes hold blood spatter patterns, carry DNA, fibers, and hair, reveal the how behind the crime. So they took them, erased them, and now they've erased part of the story, the truth of what happened to Michael Gaine. But that act of removing the clothes could be the very thing that ends up proving premeditation, because it means someone planned for the aftermath, before the murder even happened. It sounds bizarre, even cinematic, but it's a known forensic manipulation technique. A killer changes the victim's clothes, not for dignity, not for remorse, but to control the crime scene and mislead investigators. In Michael Gaine's case, this theory isn't just possible, it's alarmingly likely. Why? Because the clothes he was last seen wearing have never been recovered, and no other clothing was found with his remains, not in the slurry tank, not on the farm, not even nearby. That opens a disturbing possibility. Someone may have changed his clothes after killing him, then destroyed both sets. Why would someone do that? Let's break it down logically. If the killer changed his clothes before dumping the body, they could have wiped away blood evidence, thrown police off by removing the last seen outfit, confused the time of death since clothing decomposition helps narrow that timeline. And if the second outfit was also destroyed, as the lack of any recovered fabric suggests, it means the killer went to extreme lengths to cover their tracks. This is no longer a case of someone hiding a body. This is someone constructing a scene, editing the evidence, rewriting the narrative. The psychological implication is huge. Redressing a body post-mortem takes time. It takes planning. It takes a level of emotional distance that points to someone cold, calculated, and in control. And this could support what some in the Kenmare community have feared from the beginning. Michael Gaine didn't just get murdered, he got erased. On the property where Michael Gaine lived and likely died, Gardaí recovered a chainsaw. Now, that might not sound suspicious on a farm until you realize how Michael's body was discovered. It wasn't intact. It wasn't even recognizable. What investigators found were fragments of human remains so badly damaged, it took DNA testing to confirm they were his. That's when the chainsaw stopped being a tool and became a possible weapon. Why the chainsaw matters. In many homicide cases involving dismemberment or concealment, chainsaws are used to cut the body into smaller pieces, destroy identifying features, speed up decomposition when submerged in waste like slurry. But here's the key. A chainsaw leaves evidence everywhere. Spray patterns of blood and tissue, bone dust, mechanical oil and residue that fuses into clothing fibers, which leads us straight to the missing link. Michael's clothes might have been the smoking gun. If Michael was attacked or dismembered with a chainsaw, his clothes would have soaked up blood at high velocity, captured blade spray in specific directions proving angle of attack, contained microscopic chainsaw oil, engine residue, or embedded bone chips. And guess what? None of that can be analyzed because the clothes are gone. The clothes could have matched the chainsaw or cleared it. Forensics could have tested blade spacing versus fabric tears, fuel mixture versus oil residue in the clothes, burn marks from possible post-cut combustion. But with no fabric to test, Gardaí are left with a possible murder weapon and no direct link to the victim. If the killer destroyed the clothes because they matched the chainsaw, it means they knew this wasn't just a body dump, it was an act that had to be scrubbed clean. And that kind of evidence management, that screams premeditation. In Kenmare, County Kerry people talk. They talk in pubs, at farm gates, in whispers during Sunday Mass, and ever since Michael Gaine's remains were discovered in that slurry tank, one thing keeps coming up. Where are his clothes? And why does it feel like someone helped get rid of them? There's no way one person did all that. That's the line echoed again and again by people who knew Michael and people who've worked farmland all their lives. Because let's be real, dismembering a grown man, moving the body discreetly, dumping it into a slurry tank without being noticed, and then removing and disposing of every single piece of clothing without leaving a trace. That's not easy. That's not fast. And that's not something you do alone. Some say he was set up by more than one person. Since the beginning, neighbors and locals have questioned the story. The early missing persons investigation felt slow, even dismissive. Now with the body found but no clothes, the theory some are quietly sharing is this. The killer wasn't acting alone. Someone else may have helped move the evidence. Or at the very least, someone knows where those clothes went. One farmer said it best. You can hide a weapon, you can hide a body, but clothes, you burn them, you bury them, something still stays behind. Unless you've got help, real help. And remember, the Gardaí didn't even find the body themselves. It was discovered accidentally by Michael's own nephew during regular farm work. That's raised even more questions. If the Gardaí were searching thoroughly, how did they miss it? And what else might have been missed or moved while they weren't looking? There's a growing fear. This was a local crime with local silence. And that's the kind of pressure that's building in Kenmare. Because as long as the clothes are missing, as long as that key piece of forensic truth remains buried, someone out there is walking free. And someone in that town may know where the truth is hiding. Michael Gaine is gone. His body was left in a slurry tank. His last phone call, his last trip to town, his final steps on that farm, all frozen in time. But one thing was never found. Not his jacket, not his boots, not his shirt, not even his socks. No fabric, no fibers, no scraps. And if you know anything about murder cases, that's not just rare, it's impossible unless someone made it that way. That tiny detail might be the most important clue of all, because in the end, clothes don't lie. They record pain. They hold blood. They trap hair, dust, sweat, even the motion of violence. And Michael's clothes, they were erased. What does that tell us? That this wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't someone who lost control and then panicked. This was someone who made a decision to remove the evidence, to protect themselves, maybe even to protect someone else. And that decision is the loudest thing in this entire case. It tells us this killer is still thinking, still hiding, still ahead. But clothes don't stay hidden forever. Maybe they're buried. Maybe they were burned in a drum behind a shed. Maybe someone helped move them to the forest outside Kenmare. But whatever the truth is, it's out there, waiting to be uncovered, waiting for a single thread to be pulled. Because in a case with no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses, and no confession, it might not be the body that brings justice. It might be the thing that's missing, the thing they thought we'd forget, the clothes